Today, I'm joined by Marjan Mikel, Director of Memphasys Limited and Chair of the company's Commercialisation Committee. Over the past several months, Memphasys has sharpened its strategy around a single focus, the commercialisation of the Felix system. And that work is now translating into tangible milestones across multiple regions in the IVF space. A lot of markets opening up and a lot of work being done. We're going to explore how that strategy is unfolding, what comes next, and how the company plans to achieve sustainable commercial growth. Marjan, thanks for joining us.
Pleasure's all mine, David.
Now, you chair the Commercialisation Committee, newly formed. What are your key priorities right now as Memphasys transitions from development into global market execution?
There are really three major priorities that we're focusing on, David. The first being moving away from a distributor-based model and really heading towards a direct selling model where we drive the agenda, we drive what needs to happen, and whether it's through partners or ourselves directly, basically create the sales strategies required to actually get our clients to use Felix, understanding that we're really lucky in many ways in that Felix is a breakthrough technology. So people need to understand what it does, how it does it, and what the benefits are. Second thing is focus, focus, focus. We're focused, as you rightly pointed out when we first started this conversation, solely on the commercialization of Felix in low regulatory hurdle markets and in markets that are linked back to CE mark. And I'm sure we'll talk about it in a little more detail later, but certainly markets like Australia, the Middle East, India, are very closely tied to a sort of mutual recognition with regards to the CE mark approvals that we anticipate in the not too distant future. And the third thing, really, our sole focus is driving revenue. With the revenue comes scale, and with that scale come the economies that we need to improve the profitability of our organization.
Now, you touched on the shift from a distributor-led model to a more active go-direct strategy. What problems did the old model create, and what advantages are you seeing from going direct?
Problems. Look, when you deal with distributors, you're typically dealing with organizations that deal in established technologies that their clients know that they need and they order them. So it's a large list of portfolio products that they distribute. When you're dealing with a product that's as breakthrough as Felix is, first in class, does things completely differently to the way that they used to be done, you can't rely simply on a distribution model. You need to engage with the end users to help them understand why it is that they should be using Felix, what the benefits are, and how to actually execute the processes involved around utilization of Felix. So that was one of the big shifts, because many of the distributor models that we had embarked upon were basically organizations that took a whole bunch of established products and made them available to IVF clinics. That's not going to work ideally for a brand new leading technology like Felix. We need to take charge. We need to help our clients understand why they should be using the product. Now, that's the big difference. And you can see from the contracts we've already secured that that approach, the support that we provide to our partners, is an approach that is actually getting traction. So that's the big difference, I guess, David.
And you touched before on some of the countries that you're targeting, the Middle East, EU, even Australia. How important are they to the launch pad of this strategy?
Are absolutely imperative. We have been an organization that hasn't driven revenues for a variety of reasons, but we're now in a position where we have a product that works. We know we can make it. We've got low regulatory hurdle markets such as Japan and New Zealand, where we know that we can start selling the product immediately. And we're getting traction in Japan already. Okay, so there is repeat business, and we can talk about that a little more later, but we're certainly getting repeat business from organizations, IVF clinics that have used it. The real watershed moment for the organization, of course, is the CE mark or European approval. Many of the other contracts that we've announced in the Middle East and North Africa with our partners ITL and in India are contingent upon regulatory approval in those markets, which are linked to CE mark. Now, to give you an example, European market does circa 1 million IVF cycles per annum. That's a lot. And we're really in a position now to be able to take advantage of that with the CE mark approvals, which allow us to start selling the product in those markets. We're anticipating that happening very early in 2026. We've never had the scale of opportunity that's available to us, that will be available to us with the improvements, sorry, with the scale that a CE mark will introduce to us right across the European Union. So it's an exciting time for the organization. We're in advanced discussions with a number of potential partners in Europe at the moment. And I hope to be able to inform the market of progress that we're making versus though in the not too distant future. So a huge opportunity, something that we've never had as an organization in the past.
In a number of your presentations and public filings, you talk about a high quality clinic partner.
Mhm.
What are the characteristics of a high quality clinic partner from a commercialization point of view?
Yeah, I wish I could say there was something particularly clever about this. It's not. We need organizations that have a suitable volume of business that gets put through their clinics, and an organization that is prepared to take on board a new technology and understands the benefits that Felix offers to it beyond the dollars and cents it costs for the Felix device to actually be purchased by them. There are massive improvements in workflow, throughput, and also potentially in the sort of staff that organizations need to be able to employ to actually get the cycles processed. So our ideal clinics are those that are doing in excess of 1,000 cycles per annum, are open to different ways of doing things. And depending on who you're talking to in the clinic, of course, there's a conversation to be had with the clinicians where we're very focused on the clinical benefits that Felix has to offer. And then there are commercial discussions to be had with the CEOs who run those clinics, who are as interested, of course, in making sure that they deliver a very high quality service to their patients and customers, and at the same time do so in a very cost effective manner. So the clinics we're looking at have volume, are commercial in what it is they want to try and do, and are open to the benefits that a change in standard operating procedure that Felix offers can provide them with. And there's a lot of those. You may have seen in the presentations that have been made, the average IVF clinic across the globe will generate opportunity for us of somewhere between $100,000 and $300,000 per annum. And once we're in that organization, and once we become part of their standard operating procedure, we become very, very difficult to dislodge, David. And really important to note, in my short experience this time round with Felix and in my discussions with clients, they very, very quickly, and I'll put this in inverted commas, become addicted to the quality of what Felix provides and the simple, easy process that it introduces to their standard operating procedures. 6 minutes is a wonderful place to be, particularly when you're delivering better quality sperm to the patients through the cycle.
Now, again, you've touched on in presentations and the like, the business model.
Mm-hmm.
Console, cartridge. Console, it looks like you're almost prepared to give them away because the money is really going to be in that recurring revenue from cartridge sales.
That's absolutely the model that we're working towards, the razor and razor blade situation where we really become part and parcel of the way that an organization, an IVF organization operates. And that's a really important piece of the puzzle, because once we establish ourselves in that clinic will continue to utilize our technology, remembering that each cartridge is only good for one cycle, and then they need a new cartridge. and then another cartridge, and then another cartridge. So really, a recurring revenue model is the ideal scenario for us, because once we secure a client, that client becomes a client for life, assuming we don't screw things up and the product actually delivers on what it's supposed to deliver, which we are very confident it will do. And the clinical data supports our superiority in that space.
Now, another area the board appears to have focused on in recent months is a reduction in the cost of goods sold, getting it under that 40-ish dollar Australian mark. How meaningful is that to the threshold of margin profitability? And what are the core elements of getting that COGS number down?
We're very lucky to have a very good team in Memphasys that has been focusing on this. It's made my life that little bit easier. We've done an internal costing of the BOM for the product, and that's really allowed us to sit down, apply a fair margin that our toll manufacturing partners would apply to the whole process, and get a good understanding of where the COGS number should finish. Now, we're very confident we can get it under $40 Australian, and we can do that by looking at our partnerships, purchasing at scale. And as I said previously, one of the reasons, and you asked me originally what the focus of the commercialization committee was, we need to get scale to a level that allows us to apply the economies that come with that scale to our manufacturing. And we're already making some significant progress on the cost of goods at the moment. We've reduced costs by about $20 odd already, simply by introducing a few disciplines to the way that we engage with our customers, with our partners. And as I said, we're working at the moment to look at other ways that we can reduce the cost of manufacturing. And we know this is not us pulling something out of the air. We've gone through the process. We know what it costs to buy the componentry ourselves. We understand the time and labor that goes into manufacturing these things. And we know that partnering together with our manufacturing partners, we can get that COGS level down to below the $40.
Let's talk about CE mark approval, a watershed moment if and when it's achieved, or when it's achieved. The commentary is expecting early 26, so you seem very confident of it, and also the commercial activation that will be achieved.
Mhm.
What does CE mark unlock commercially and operationally?
Well, the obvious thing that it unlocks immediately is the European market. As a collective, the European market is the largest IVF market globally. There's over 500 million people in Europe. And as I said, when it comes to the number of cycles that are produced or processed in Europe, it's Europe, daylight, and then every other market in the world. So it's a huge opportunity for us immediately to commence selling Felix to IVF clinics in the European market. The other thing that it also does is it triggers the other contracts that we've already announced. Okay, so CE mark, or European approval, is very important to us for our contracts in the Middle East, because many of the markets in the Middle East are contingent, or regulatory approvals contingent upon CE mark. So that'll tick that box, and we start recognizing revenues immediately. Remembering we have a $390,000 contract with our partners ITL in as a minimum order in the Middle East. India falls in exactly the same category. As soon as we get CE mark, we know that CDCO, I always get that wrong, but anyway, Indian approval will take about 2 to 3 months after we get CE mark in the country. So again, we tick the box, we can start recognizing selling the product to our partners, and importantly, start the IVF clinics getting good results. The other area, of course, is this wonderful country that we live in. There is mutual recognition between the TGA, which is Australian regulatory body, that's the Therapeutic Goods Administration, and CE mark, and CE standing for Communauté Européenne. So once we get the CE mark approval, I won't say it's a rubber stamping exercise, but with the mutual recognition, the pathway to regulatory approval in Australia is greatly condensed and usually only takes 2 to 3 months. So it opens up a whole gambit of new opportunity for us. I spoke to the advanced discussions that we're already in with potential partners and customers in Europe and in Australia. And importantly, it's one of the triggers that allows us to start recognizing revenues in the Middle East and in India. So it's a big, big deal for us commercially.
Last quarterly talked about a 40% approximate reduction in operating expenditure following a well-publicized operational reset. How has this sharpened the commercial focus?
Some difficult decisions needed to be made, David, and the board's taken those decisions. That some of those aren't particularly easy. But with the sharpened focus on strategy comes a sharpened focus on what it is that we're spending our money on. And we're really very cognizant and very aware of who pays the bills for the organization. The shareholders' investments in our organization need to be treated like our own money. We don't have the scale and we don't have the size for us to be able to undertake everything we'd love to do with all the technologies that are available to Memphasys as part of its portfolio. That's not to say that the likes of Rockstar and everything else got thrown out with the water, or the baby with the water, the bath water. But what we're trying to do is make sure that every dollar that we've got goes towards commercializing a market-ready, best-in-class, first-in-class technology such as Felix, allowing us to start generating revenue, which then allows us with the flexibility to expand our footprint globally with Felix, but also then come back and look at some of the other technologies that we've got at some point in the future and start looking at how we might be able to move those forward as well. But be under no illusion, the reductions in costs are driven by our focus on Felix. And when I say focus on Felix, focus on selling Felix. And every dollar that's in the coffers and have been raised over the last raise, every single dollar is going towards commercialization and making product. I mean, we're in a wonderful position now where I've actually got to start handing forecasts over to our manufacturing partners because we're going to need tens of thousands of units of Felix cartridges in the next 12 months. The organization's never been in that position before. And I'll repeat that, tens of thousands. Not one, not 100, many.
So looking forward, you touched on it there. What does success look like from a commercialization point of view? What should investors be looking for from the company over the next 12 months?
We have quite a number of late stage contracts that we are finalizing at the moment, and they should be finalized in the coming weeks and months. So the investors should look forward to us making some of these public over the very short term. We've also made it very clear that we will be targeting $2 million in contracted revenues by the end of this financial year. Now, that is head and shoulders above anything the organization's done and is testament to our focus on commercialization, full stop. In 2027 financial year, the goal is $6 million in contracted sales. So success for our team is hitting $2 million and then 6 million at a minimum. Remembering contracted sales of $2 million is our minimum order. Our go direct model allows us to impact directly the demand for Felix within those contracts, which are typically being delivered to IVF clinics. So the better we prepare our partners to do things the way we think they should be done and manage that ourselves through our partners, the greater the demand's going to be. So don't be fooled by, for instance, the ITL contract, which is $390,000. That is a minimum commitment that they've given to us. Our job is to make sure that we blow that out of the water, and initial indications are that we're heading in the right direction in that space.
So in closing, what is your message to shareholders about the path from today's early traction to a sustainable, large-scale commercial business?
We're in a wonderful position at the moment in that we have something or will have something that the organization has never had in the past. We have a watershed moment with our CE mark approval, which allows us to access the largest IVF clinic in the world. That will also precipitate the kickoff of our contracts that we've announced so that we can start selling product into those markets and generate revenues. We have a number of late-stage negotiated contracts, which we will also be announcing over the next few months. So our shareholders and any potential investors should be looking forward to a rich pipeline of announcements around what I've just described. New clients, beating our minimum order contract, and ensuring that we're hitting that $2 million in contracted sales this financial year and growing that to 6 million the year after. And as I said, there is not going to be any hiatuses when it comes to the frequency of announcements around that, because we're going to need more contracts to be able to hit those numbers. So CE mark is a watershed for us. The focus solely on commercializing Felix is a big shift for the organization. Management and the revamped board are completely focused on that and that alone. So watch this space for more information and some interesting developments over the next month or two. I'm very, very excited about what the future holds for the organization. It's one of the reasons I joined the board 4 or 5 months ago. So I hope that answers your question, David.
Well, a clear focus, much to be done, but clearly much to come out over the coming months, and some real targets. The writing's on the wall, the targets there to aim for, and all shareholders will be focused on it. So we thank you for your time, watch with interest, and look forward to speaking to you again. Thanks, Marjan.
My pleasure. Thank you very much, David.